Now, see, let's say you have this Docker host, okay? And this is actually based on CentOS. And let's say this particular Docker host is having only one NIC card, okay? And by default, there is one IP which is attached to this NIC card, or this NIC card is holding an IP address like 65.3.6.9. Clear? And this is a public IP address. Clear? Now, what you want to do, you want to run a container of Apache. Clear? Obviously, that's very easy for you to run it now. Okay, as you know everything about Docker run and commands. So this is my container where my Apache process is actually running. And obviously, when you create container, this container will always get an IP address from the Docker 0 bridge. Okay. By default, this Docker 0 is a network which is created when you install Docker. Okay. Now let me give you a brief over here. Docker network ls. Okay, right now I need to start my Docker. See, right now there are only by default three networks are present: bridge, host. This thing we have discussed guys yesterday or not? Manish, have we discussed this thing yesterday?
No, but we start to discuss, but there will be, you have shown there will be one scenario.
One use case you have described as a production that in case of one Nick or perspective or something, I'm not exactly remember. One use case we have discussed.
Yeah, I
Yesterday
think
only.
use case we have
Supervisor
discussed,
D.
like
Supervisor
we have
D.
also created two
Yes.
networks like Vodafone and Idea.
No, we didn't get.
No.
But supervisor D, and there will be how to get the host VM to container, like how to reserve the storage.
Okay, got it.
Basically.
Okay, so see, by default, you have three networks which are available like Bridge, Host, and the None. Ignore this Idea and Vodafone. This I have created. Okay, so ignore these networks. By default, this bridge is responsible to give all the IPs to all the containers. Okay, like if you will inspect this bridge, Docker inspect, or let's say Docker network inspect bridge and grab IP. So see, do a less on this. See, by default, this Docker 0 bridge is having the range of CIDR as 172.17.0.0/16. Okay, clear? So, whenever you will create any container, that container will always get the IP from this Docker 0 bridge network. Okay, this is by default. And obviously, if you want your container to hold an IP address, there must be an NIC card inside the container. So network resource is always present inside the container, which actually holds the IP address. And let's say the IP address of this system is 172, or of this container is 172.17.0.1, or let's say 2. Clear? Now, on this particular Apache container, your a.com is running. And now your customer wants to communicate to this container. So what customer will do? Customer will always hit www.a.com in the browser. This request will be forwarded to a DNS server. In the DNS server, you have defined a record for this .com at 65.3.6.9. Clear? So this customer will always connect to DNS. DNS will give the IP address of this website where the web server of the a.com is running, and the customer will hit the request on this IP address. Okay, and obviously the customer is using HTTP protocol. So this request will be always hit on port number 80. Clear? Now, when any request is coming on your NIC card on port number 80, there must be some process which is listening on this NIC card. But right now the process is running inside the container. The process inside the container cannot directly listen on the NIC card. Why? Because it is completely isolated. Clear? So for that, What concept you have over here? You have the concept of port forwarding. Means while running this container, you will run this command docker run hyphen or hyphen itd hyphen name apache hyphen p. First you need to write a host port, after that you will write a container port, and after that image name. Clear? So in my case, what will be the command? AT:80. Clear? Means if any request which is coming on this NIC card on 80 port number, that will be directly forwarded to this container on port number 80. Okay. And this process inside the container is actually listening on port number 82. It will respond. Clear? But this particular port forwarding is actually managed by Docker proxy. Okay. Let me give you a very simple example. Let's say I have installed HTTPD over here. Clear? Guys, can you mute yourself? Now, let's say this, you have installed a HTTPD. After that, you have started this systemctl start HTTPD. Clear? And now if you will look for all the port number, TULPN, grep, listen, see, this 80 port is actually being used by HTTPD. Obviously, because your process is running on the base operating system and it is actually listening on the port number 80. Okay. And it is listening on all the IP addresses. Now, if I want to run a container, I want to do a port forwarding from my host to container as 80:80. Right now, it will not give me the permission to run this command. Why? Because your 80 port is already in use. Obviously, some process is actually using this 80 port number. So at single time, we can only bind one host port to one container. We cannot bind one host port to two containers at the same time. This can be done if you have multiple NIC cards, but with single NIC is not possible to bind one host port to two containers. Clear? So now this 80 port is actually being used by some Apache process. That's why my Docker is not able to bind that. If I will stop my HTTPD process, and now see, the port number is what? Free. Now you can run this command. Now if you will use nettulpn, see, this 80 port is now being used by Docker proxy. Okay. So what Docker is actually doing? Docker is actually mapping or binding a port number on your host machine to a port number on the container. Clear? And this is actually done.
Earlier, yes, the 80 port is used at the host level, right?
Yeah.
So now after stop that service, there is no HTTP services running on the host level. It's just bind the 80 port with the physical NIC to the container virtual NIC.
Yes.
So whatever the request is coming on the physical NIC, that will forward it to the Docker container, right? Container.
That's absolutely right.
So if I want to run some services related to HTTP on the host as an admin, I can't run that, right? In that scenario.
You will not be able to run it. Okay, one option is available if you have multiple NIC cards.
That is fine. You have clearly stated that if you have multiple NIC, then you can use the different NIC, right? That is fine. But in single NIC scenario, I can't do HTTP on the host
you will
level.
Not be able
in that
to
scenario.
Okay. In the Docker PS also see. this particular 80 port is binded on all the IP address of all the NIC cards. Okay, that's why you cannot use this 80 port number. Okay, but let's say if you have two NIC cards, then you can run this command in a different way. Docker run hyphen.
Kushal,
Yeah.
if we have CentOS image, then we need to port 22. So how to connect 22 port on both host machine as well as container?
No, what you are saying?
अगर मैंने क्या डॉकर इमेज में क्या अगर सेंटोस का इमेज इंस्टॉल करता हूँ तो वो पोर्ट अगर मैं बैश को जाता हूँ 22 पोर्ट से ही जाता हूँ कनेक्ट होता हूँ करेक्ट
वो आप SSH लेते हो, you take SSH.
yes so the host जो base machine already running the 22 port, so how to connect the container using the 22
possibility.
port? It's using the different ports or same?
No. Depends. Inside your CentOS image, the SSH is being running on 22 port number or any another port number.
Okay.
Clear? Now, let me tell you that scenario also. But before that, let me complete my point. So see, if you have two NIC cards, okay, then you can use -p 65.6.7.8 colon 80 colon 80. And what is the image name? Apache HTTPD. And I want to run my another container as Apache 2. Okay, and that is actually running on 78.9.8.7 colon 80 colon 80. Okay, so now Docker proxy will manage this. If any request is coming on this IP on port number 80, this will be forwarded to this Apache 1 container on port number 80. And if the request is coming on this IP, then the request will be going to or forwarded to the Apache 2. Okay, but if you are not mentioning any IP like here, then it will be start listening on 0.0.0.0. Okay, so this is how you can use it. You can bind the same host port to multiple containers at the same time if you are using two different NIC cards. Otherwise, it's not possible. That's a very basic OSI layer concept. Okay, OSI model concept. Now, let's say you have asked a very nice question that if I'm running a CentOS container over here, okay, now let's say I have my server here. I want to take SSH from this server to this CentOS system. Am I right?
Correct.
So see, this CentOS container is having a private IP now. How will you be able to connect to this server to this container directly? You cannot, because this IP is not reachable from outside.
Yes.
Here. So what you will do from this server, you will come on the port number of 20T of this NIC card. And obviously in your system, the SSH is running. So 22 port is actually being used. So you cannot use that port if you have single NIC. So what you will do while running this container, you will use this command. Docker run -d -p 21 colon 22 CentOS. And let's say the SSH process is running inside it and it is listening on 22 TCP. Clear? So whenever this server will forward the request on 65.3.6.9 colon 21, this will be forwarded to this container on 22 because you have mentioned this rule. Clear?
Yes. And
You
without
can use some
using
another
any
port
ports
number of one host.
or Kushal, without using any ports, so it's container acquire the anything port, like कोई भी port use कर सकते हो, correct?
Yeah, you can use any port number from the host machine, okay? But remember, from 0 to I think 1032, these are system ports.
Yes, correct.
In that case, you can have some issues. Okay, but if you don't want to face any issues, turn off SLNX. This is the first thing we do in the production environment. We always turn off SLNX. Okay, otherwise you would not be able to do any port mapping and everything because you need to change the context of all the ports, right? So this is very important. Now,
Kaushal, so you are doing that. You are using 21 port and map to the 22 port.
Obviously, my process in the container is running on 22.
Right. So same we can do in the this 80 port as well. We can map any other port to route the traffic to the anything.
Yeah, you
right?
can use any other port to this, but in the HTTPD or in the Apache container, obvious the customer will not never write the port number here.
No. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Clear? But you can do it. You can map a 82 port number to a container which is running on 80. Clear?
Okay. So this in that scenario, because externally the customer will not added any port.
For that, you have one solution. See, let's say the requirement is you want to run two websites in two containers. Okay, clear? So obviously, let's say this is your first website, this is your second website. Okay, in this container, you are running Apache and you are running www.a.com. And in this container also you are using, let's say, Nginx, and you are using www.b.com. Now, as you know, both the Nginx and the Apache will be running on 80 port number inside. Clear? Now, and here you have only one NIC card. In two NIC card it is possible, but how will you achieve it with a single NIC card? In the case of customer, it will always hit on www.a.com or b.com, and this request will always come on 80 port number because we are using HTTP protocol. And in the DNS server, you have entered the A record of the a.com as 65.3.6.9, and for b.com also you have mentioned the A record on 65.3.6.9. Okay, so whenever, obvious, if you have run this container first time, okay, obviously the port of 80 on the host machine will be binded to this container. Clear? If two customers are hitting www.a.com and b.com, both the requests will be forwarded to this a.com container. So both the customer will see the website of a.com, b.com will not be visible to them. So for that, what you can do, one thing, you can have another NIC card. That is the one solution. But see, that is not a reliable solution. Let's say you want to create 15 containers of Apache. Then you cannot attach 15 different NIC card. Now there must be some limit on your bare metal also, and if you are using some hypervisor, then also there must be some limit. Clear? So for that, what solution we have? We will create a layer 4 load balancer over here, okay, which is called a network load balancer. And let's say the IP is 5.5.5.5, and for the b.com, we will change this A record to 5.5.5.5. Okay, and we will run two commands: docker run -itd -name acom, okay, -p 80:80 httpd. And for the b.com, we will use 82 port number. Clear? Now, and we will define one rule in this network load balancer. Whenever any request is coming on 80 port number on this 5.5.5.5, forward it to 65.3.6.9 on 82. Clear? So the customer which is actually requesting on a.com, or let's say it is requesting on b.com, it will always be forwarded to this load balancer, because the A record we have mentioned as 5.5.5.5, and whenever any request is coming on this network load balancer, it will be always forwarded to this NIC card on port number 82, and we have mapped the 82 port number of host to b.com container, so that will be forwarded to here. Okay, so for another HTTPD, you need to create a network load balancer. You have this solution. So one solution is you can have multiple NICs, but that is not reliable. One solution is you can have an external network load balancer. Clear? If this machine is on AWS, you can configure it directly. Okay. So this is how you can do it. Got it, guys?
Got it.
Got it.
Now, after that, let's say The third solution can be like you can have an application load balancer also. Okay. But for this solution, network load balancer is much more reliable. Clear now? Because in the DNS, we cannot give the port numbers. That is a very basic thing. If the customer is coming on HTTP, it will always be hitting on 80 port number. We cannot change it. Okay. Now, after that, now how, obviously you know that these containers are getting IPs from Docker Zero Bridge. Okay. They both are in the same network. Obviously, they both can communicate to each other. Okay. Let's say in this system, you have the requirement first Idea project, second Vodafone project. Now, in the Idea project, you want to create 2 containers. In the Vodafone project, you want to create 3 containers. And obviously, when you will be creating containers over here, 1, 2 for Idea and 3 for Vodafone. If they are on the same Docker host, by default, they will always use Docker Zero Bridge. Clear? And obviously, if Docker Zero Bridge is giving the IP address to these all the containers, they will all be able to communicate with each other. Means my container of the Idea project is able to communicate to Vodafone project. Now this is a security risk. So what will I do generally in the production environment? We never do, or we never use this Docker Zero Bridge. We always create separate network for the containers. Okay. So I will create one network for this container like Idea network. I will create one network for this container as Vodafone network. Okay. And while creating the containers, I will attach them to a network like this command, docker run -d -p 80:80 network Vodafone. Clear? And same command over here also, but in this case, the network will be Idea. Okay. Now, obviously, this Idea network is having, let's say you can define the CIDR also. Clear? But by default, it takes this 172.18.0.0/16. And for this Vodafone network, if you are creating it without mentioning any CIDR, then it will take 172.18.0.0 or sorry, 19.0.0/16. So as you know, these both the networks are different. Here 16 bits are fixed. Here also 16 bits are fixed. It is 18. It is 19. So the containers will get the IP address like this. But they are on the same host. Now how to do it? Docker. What happened? Docker network create, first is Idea, which is already created. One is Vodafone. Clear? If you want to inspect these network, Docker network inspect Idea, and see the Idea network is having the range as 172.18. And if you will inspect Vodafone, this is having the range as 172.19. Clear? Now, while running the containers, CentOS -p 80:80 network Idea and HTTPD, sorry, CentOS, and I need to use ITD over here. Here. Done. Okay, port is already allocated. I need to make it free. Running, and for one container I am using a Vodafone network. I'm not using Docker Zero, and binding a port 82. Name should be changed. Actually, you cannot use the same container name again and again. Two containers are running. Okay. If you want to see the IP address of these containers, Docker inspect CentOS, first container name, grab IP. See what is the IP address? 18. And if you will inspect the container CentOS one, what is the IP address? 19. Now go inside one container, Docker exec-it, CentOS, bash, and from it ping the another container. Let me check the IP address over here. It is 18. Now ping 19. It is not pinging. Okay. So this is how we do the things in the production environment. We never use the Docker Zero Bridge directly because we always need to isolate the different projects on the same system. So we always create the separate networks for them, and we always allocate the containers to this network. Clear? So if you want to create a network with your CIDR range, okay, you can use -- help. See, you can give your complete subnet -- subnet. I want to give 192.168.7.8/14 I want to give. So I can create a network with that. Docker network create. Okay. What network you want to create? Let's say Kushal -- subnet. What is the subnet? 192.168.0.1/14. Docker network inspect Kushal. See, what is the range? And if you are creating any container from it, Docker run -itd -network Kushal CentOS, and if you are going inside it, what is the IP address? The IP address is 192.168.0.2/14. So you can create your custom network with custom CIDRs or custom subnet. Clear? So now if you want to remove some network, you have these commands. If you want to connect any network, disconnect any network, if you want to see all the network, if you want to use Docker network prune command, all the network which are actually unused by any of the container will be removed. Yes. All the networks are being used. If I'm removing all the containers and see -a -- help, we can see, yeah, nothing is here. Okay. Docker network remove. It has active endpoints, so you need to remove the container first. Now you can run Docker network prune command. Yes, Docker network ls. All the networks which are actually not being used by any container will be removed, but these three will be there. Now already I have told you the concept of bridge. Now what is the concept of this host? See, what is the concept of this host network? Just a second guys, yeah, let me attach a charger.
No problem.
Host means inside only.
Yeah, telling you, just a second. See, let's say this is a client system, okay, and this is a Docker host. Now there are three networks: bridge, host, and none. Clear? Now see what my client wants. My client want two applications inside a container. One is Apache, one is Crondy. Clear? And he wants that these both the applications should communicate over the localhost. Now see, this use case I have discussed with you earlier. One option is what you can use. You can use supervisor D, which we have discussed yesterday. Second is you can use host network. Clear? So this both the container I will be creating over here. Okay. Apache, cron D. Now instead of creating the virtual NIC card over here, I'm creating these networks with network host. So both the containers will actually be listening on a single NIC card on the host machine directly. Means these containers will not have any IP address. Because they are using host network directly. The process is isolated, but they are both are listening on same NIC card. So see, one example I can give you, docker run -itd, okay, -- name apache -- network host, and I'm giving it like httpd. Now see, net state -l_tulpn grep. Listen, this 80 port is being used by what process, guys? Directly by httpd, but that is actually running inside a container, right? There is no role of Docker proxy because you are not using the container network. Now if you will inspect this container, docker inspect apache grep -i IP, see there is no IP address which is allocated to container. It is actually directly listening on 80 port number on the host machine. It is actually believing that this is having the base machine's IP address. If any request is coming on this IP address, it is working fine. Clear? So this is how you can create these containers which are sharing the host network. Okay. So this NIC card will be having the IP address and the container will be listening directly on these NIC cards. So this is about the host network. Clear, guys?
Yes.
If your applications are tightly coupled, if you want your applications to communicate with localhost directly, then you have only one option to use the host network. When you will use host network, it will completely ignore the Docker proxy or the Docker network. Clear? The process will be isolated in the container, but they will use the network of your host machine. And obviously, you all are aware about the host machine network, how the request comes and goes. Clear? So these all are the things we cover in the Docker network. Everything from scratch.
Come to the last.
Just a second. Say.
So in this scenario, if some like you describe in the second scenario that the two one for RDI and one for that is one two containers running for the two different application, two different Apache application, right? So in that scenario, this solution doesn't work, right? We cannot. This NIC is does not has any intelligence to send the traffic respective network or user.
Yeah, this HTTPD is listening on port number 80. So any request is coming on 80 port number directly. It is actually listening on the 80 port number. No.
No,
In this scenario, the Docker proxy is listening.
Right. I'm asking this about this scenario. If the Apache you have written as Apache, that is let's suppose one server is running for the Vodafone website, and this cron ID is running for the Vodafone web application, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all the traffic is coming on the NIC only, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how to segregate the traffic respective to the ID or Vodafone? So that is not possible in that scenario, right?
Yeah. Obvious that is not possible in this scenario.
So this solution will not work in that case. We have to differentiate the different subnet and creating the network on the container level and attach to the container.
Yes, like the way you do on the basic simple dedicated server without containers. How you isolate applications from each other on the base machine?
Okay, come to the second scenario. In second scenario, uh, down. Okay, okay. Like in I'm not from the IT background, so let's suppose there is one bare metal or big specification bare metal server where we're running the multiple containers, right? So let's my in one bare metal server we are running 5 Apache container and 5 database container and 5 other any Java something, right? So and this Apache server have to communicate with the database internally, right?
Yes. Okay.
So in that scenario, the traffic that my requirement is that my traffic coming from the internet is coming from NIC 1, okay. And if Apache is want to communicate internally with the database, they have use the communication NIC 2 for that. So how to achieve this type of scenario? Got my
Okay.
query?
Yeah, I got your query.
Okay.
This question cannot be asked by a student. See, what actually we do in the production environment, what actually I do with my clients on Docker.
Okay.
Let's say they have one Apache database over here.
I'm very bad in this Apache, these thing. I'm because I'm basically from the core network application.
Yeah,
So,
got your point.
Okay.
They are just very simple web server. You just need to run 3 commands to install them. I will tell you someday, okay?
No problem.
Yeah. Now see, you have, let's say you have Apache container, you have MySQL container, and you are using a simple network. Okay, let's say these both are using IDEA network. Okay. Here now, by default, let's say this it is having the IP as 0.2/14, and this is having the IP address as 0.3/14. I'm mentioning /14 because you will understand that these are both on the same network.
Right.
Okay? Now, by default, this is not the part of IP address. Just now, see. Now, the IP address. Now, if this Apache container wants to communicate to MySQL container, obviously in my Apache container, I will always write the IP of this. Here. But now this is not a good solution. Why? Because anytime if your this MySQL container will go down and if you are creating a new container, it can have a different IP address, right?
Right.
Again, you need to change in this Apache. So what we generally do to make it reliable, what we do, now this is little bit complicated, but as you are from the network, you can, or you all people can understand. This is an IC card. I will run 2 commands over here. Docker run -itd -name apache -p 80:80 and httpd. One command also I will run here MySQL and yeah, you need to give an environment variable also, but I'm not writing it here. Okay,
Fine.
yeah. Now see, if I want my Apache to communicate with this MySQL in the Apache container, I will write in the configuration file. If I want to give some database IP address, I will write 65.3.6.9:3306. Whenever my Apache wants to communicate with MySQL, it will always forward the request on this NIC card on 3306. And obviously, if the request is coming on this NIC card on 3306, that will be forwarded to this container on 3306. Now, what is the important point here? You do not need to give the, or you do not need to rely on the IP address of the container because there is no need of it. Clear? I don't care what these containers are having IP addresses. If I will remove the MySQL container, if I will create it again, no issues. Because I have configured my Apache like this. Whenever my Apache needs to communicate with the database, it will always hit the request on my same NIC card on 3306. And I have defined a rule over here. Whenever any request is coming on 3306, it will be forwarded to this container. So we always make a loop over here. Okay. We always forward the request on the base machine's NIC card, and from there, with the help of port forwarding, we come to another application. Got it? This you can do with the another NIC card also. Clear?
Correct.
This is the best and the reliable solution we actually use in the production. So never give the IP address of any container in some application if you want to connect them. You always need to forward the request on the NIC card, and from that you need to make that request up on the IDEA.
Normally in production we are not communicating on the container IP. Basically we are using the service IP for that. So service IP is can be changed. So that's why.
No, that is see in the Docker, obviously services concept of Kubernetes, no?
Right. That is Kubernetes.
If you are using Docker, then in the Kubernetes everything will be changed, guys. Okay, right now I'm only talking about Docker.
I understand. Got it.
If you are only using Docker, then this solution is very reliable.
Fine.
Got it?
Got it.
Any more questions, guys, from you?
Kushal, I have one question. If my MySQL network is like 172.172.19, so my Apache container can communicate with 172.19 network if we have different network for the Apache and MySQL.
Yeah. No matter. We do not need to worry about the container IP address, guys.
Because
just imagine that this request is coming from
application and DB are not in same IP range. So
right.
They are not in the same network. That then also no issue, because you are not communicating directly with this container. No, you are making your request on this NIC card on the port number, and when your request will come on 3306, Docker proxy will manage it now.
Okay.
It's something like a customer is hitting on 3306 port number of NIC. That will be forwarded to this MySQL, right?
So one more use case, Kaushal. If let's suppose we have big production setup where we have multiple bare metal server around 80 or 90. So MySQL is running on the let's suppose my Apache is one server is running on the rack 1 compute 1. And the MySQL is running on the rack 6 and the compute number is something around 6.
You cannot communicate two containers on different hosts with Docker. For that, you need to go for Docker Swarm or Kubernetes. Okay. Because in that, you actually need to create an overlay network.
Right. Okay.
Or you need to define the SDN actually. Because if you want to communicate two machines, you need to set up some switch router, right?
Right.
Clear? So for that, you need to use a programmatic way of that, which is SDN, software defined networking. With the help of Docker only, you cannot, there is not a single chance you are able to communicate on the two containers on different hosts. Only one solution is there. If your two nodes are having the public IPs, okay, then obviously from this container, you can make a request on that public IP address because that is reachable. Okay.
Okay, so that will be possible only with the single
public IP only, not on the private IP. Obvious. Let's say this is the first host and this is the second host. Okay, this is having the private IP. Let's say 192.168.0.5. This is having the IP address as 192.168.0.6. They both are in same network. Now these both the systems can communicate easily because they both are in the same network. Okay, but let's say the container is running over here and the container is running over here. It is running Apache, it is running a database. Clear? Now obviously this container can make request to this NIC card, but it cannot make request directly to 192.168.0.6 because this is not a public IP address. Okay, you can make a request to this IP address phone from only on the host machine. Clear? Now, if you are running this container on the host network, then you can do it. One solution is this. And if this particular system is having a public NIC or the public IP address like 65.3.6.9, then you can write in this container, make a request on 65.3.6.9:3306, because by default, all the containers can communicate to the world. Clear? So this will forward a request on this public IP, and from that, with the help of port forwarding, that request will be forwarded to the database. Clear?
Yeah.
Got it, guys?
Got it.
Okay. Anything else?
I think that's good. So as you told, Kaushal, so that if we want to communicate in the different hosts in the single my organization network, private network, we can say that private routable, basically L3 network. So we need a swarm and SDN part, right?
Yes, you need a SDN part.
Okay, so how to segregate, how to configure the VLANs and these things in the host level or
These
container
all
level?
will be configured in SDN. Okay. For SDN, you have in Kubernetes, you actually do not need to configure the SDN. Kubernetes gives you it. Okay. By
Right.
default, you can use Flannel. Okay. You can use Weave. If I talk about the production environment, then DigitalOcean, if you have heard about, this is using Flannel. Okay. If you will see, for I think one organization is also there, which is actually using Weave. Okay. The organizations which are using Red Hat products, they are using Open vSwitch. Okay.
Right.
If they are on OpenShift 3.9. Okay. And if they are on OpenShift 4.6, they are using Multus.
Right.
This is quite famous. Okay. Multus.
I have heard about this Multus, right? So that is a.
Yeah. So these are the SDN parts. For that, you need to this is actually not needed to learn. Okay. Because Kubernetes, OpenShift, they all give you the complete network. You can define your network range, or you can define your subnets. Okay.
Okay. I think we will discuss in this OpenShift.
How this is working. This is same as like you are saying about the VLAN. Let's say you have this switch. Obvious, you are saying that I have, let's say, all the LAN cables attached into a switch. Now all the LAN cables, all the systems which are attached to that switch can communicate with each other. So if I want to segregate the network on a single switch, what I will do? I will create VLAN, right? So I will create like 8 slots of that, and I will apply the VLAN ID. If the request is coming from this particular 8 slot, which is having the VLAN ID of 1, that will be only able to communicate with the VLAN ID 1 IP, the machine. Okay. So that is how we can segregate the network in a single switch. Same way we do it in the SDN also. Okay. So what we do in the Kubernetes cluster, you create the projects actually. Okay. You create projects. These are the namespaces. Okay. Inside the project, you run your pods. Okay. Now, by default, there are 3 things. OVS. One is OVS subnet. One is OVS multi-tenant. These are network policies. And one is OVS network policy. Okay. By default, if you are using OVS subnet, okay, then all the pods on all the worker nodes can communicate with each other directly. If some pod is there in this project, it can also communicate with this. Okay. But if you are using multi-tenant, no project or no pods in some project will be able to communicate with another project. But if you are using network policy, okay, then you can define it. By default, subnet is always configured in Kubernetes and OpenShift, but you can restrict it. So you can create a network policy resource over here. Okay, and you can define the ingress and the egress rules. Okay, what traffic or from what project and from which ports traffic can come on this. So this is all done by VLAN. Okay, by default, if you are using OBS subnet, means all the projects will be having the VLAN ID as 0. And if all the projects are having VLAN ID as 0, all the pods within these projects can communicate with each other. Okay, so in the Kubernetes, actually, this is actually done on the project level, on the namespaces level. Got it?
Okay.
Yeah, but for that, you need to go for the SDN training because that
Okay.
is not the part of the course. Yeah.
In OpenShift as well, there is no SDN part,
No,
right?
no, SDN will not be covered actually. I can cover SDN completely. It is not like that, like I do not know SDN. Okay, I know it very well, but that is not the part of the training. Clear?
Okay.
Yeah, I have only given 2 trainings on SDN. So I do not have that much experience on SDN. Okay, like the way like 10 years experience person have on network. Okay,
Right.
but I know the things how to do the things with Kubernetes and OpenShift. Okay, I know how to like complete the project if you have some requirement of this. Clear?
Yeah, we will do one day discussion on that part. No problem. Yes.
And you are from the network. I will be learning something from you.
Sure.
So I think that's enough for today, guys.
Yeah, that's fine. So what is the tomorrow agenda for that? What is the we can start tomorrow?
Persistent storage we will start.
Okay, system storage.
Clear? Yeah. Any more questions? I think, are you Ashish now from network?
Yes. No. I'm Unix admin.
Okay. Manish, you are from network.
Yeah,
I'm
Manish
basically
from-
I'm working in a telco environment. I'm solution architect for the right now. I'm working on the OpenStack part to solution architect for the solution for the OpenStack perspective end to end.
Okay.
But network, we can say that in SDN fabric part, I'm not a fully expert, but yes, I can understand on the higher level how to communicate with the to the L3 north southbound everything east to west communication. That I have experience on that part.
I have read that these concept before 2 years, northbound, southbound, but I actually left OpenStack because I was not having that much time to like go deeper in.
Right now the telco is running on the OpenStack part, everything application. So right now the testing is going on the 5G application, which is on the all are containerized. So still on US and some countries are ready to directly onboard the 5G telco application on the containerized, but very limited. Maybe two or three operators are doing the same. One is Japan. So, but yes, in coming years, it's a boost coming related to the containerized in the telco because edge site will come in picture. So that's why we are ready. We are making us self to ready for that.
Okay, I will help you to do that.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, guys. Yeah, say.
Thank you, Kashyap.
Yeah, welcome.